Hi, my name is Eric.Kimberling. I'm with Third Stage Consulting, and I started my career as an SAP consultant back in the mid 90s. I would do organizational change management for some pretty large organizations. I was in my mid 20s, just finished business school, and went through the training program at one of the big system integrators and immediately started helping clients implement SAP solutions, among others. And I had some great experiences while working at that organization. Developed some great skills, worked with some smart people, learned a lot about business and technology. But here's the fact of the matter: I should have been fired as an SAP consultant early in my career. And here's why. It's not that I wasn't grateful for that opportunity. It wasn't that I learned a lot. It wasn't that I regret doing that work early in my career. I certainly may not be where I am now if I hadn't started my career doing that sort of work. But there were a few problems that I can look back and reflect on now, and I think this all relates back to the industry the way it is today, and some real flaws in the industry. The first thing is I didn't know what I was doing. I was hired straight out of grad school, didn't have any industry experience, felt like I was pretty smart, felt like I knew everything, as most 20-somethings do. And the reality was I was just out of school and didn't have a lot of experience to apply to these large transformations. So that was the first thing, is I didn't have an appropriate skill set, in my opinion, to be able to help these companies through their transformations in a meaningful way. The second thing, and this is the one that bothered me at the time and still bothers me today, is I felt like while I was there, I was overbilling clients. There's a lot of internal pressure to bill regardless of how much value you're providing or how many hours you're really working or how many hours you're contributing high amounts of value to a client. I remember the first project I was on, we were all expected to be at the client site at 7:45 a.m., and we were expected to be there till at least 8 o'clock at night. So we were expected to bill 12 hours a day. And I remember there were times when I was there and I felt like I've got about maybe 3 or 4 hours of value to provide here, but yet I'm still billing the client for 12 hours a day. So a lot of overbilling was happening there, and there was a large team that I was on, and I saw a lot of it. There was other people that had plenty of time on their hands, but they were all billing 12 hours a day, sometimes 14 hours a day. And as the project went on and as timelines got more and more compressed, that became more and more prevalent. So the overbilling of clients and not really having any sort of transparency or accountability behind that was another reason why I should have been fired, as well as some others that were there at the time. The third thing is that I was very biased in those early years of my career. I was there to promote SAP. I was there to drink the Kool-Aid, to promote the Kool-Aid, to go in with an SAP first mentality. And our number one job was to preserve as much of a footprint as we could for SAP and for our SAP bench of consultants. So looking back now, especially, it was pretty clear that that bias wasn't necessarily in the client's best interest. That drinking of the Kool-Aid and that economic conflict of interest, let's call it. So that was another thing, is I didn't feel like I was giving biased, objective opinions. I remember one of the first projects I was on was about $1 million software evaluation and selection process that we were hired to do. And a couple weeks in, it was pretty clear that we were going to recommend SAP because we were part of the SAP practice, and we, as a group, made money when companies were implementing SAP. So I remember asking, what other options are we going to look at besides SAP? And I kind of got the laugh that, oh, you're kind of young and naive, kid. We're not going to look at anything. We're recommending SAP, so we need to back into the answer that's most appropriate for this client, or we need to back in to justify this answer that we know ahead of time in advance without knowing anything about this client, know that that's the most appropriate thing for them, or at least we need to convey that to them. So that was another, just kind of an early eye-opening moment, that there was a pressure to drink that Kool-Aid, to force our biases onto the client, and the client took our opinion because we were part of one of those big name consulting firms that no one ever got fired for, allegedly. So was kind of the early stages in my career. And then the final thing that leads me to think that I should have been fired as an SAP consultant early in my career is that I had no accountability to the client. I gave the example of the hours that I billed, regardless of how much time and effort was actually required to do the work. But behind that, the client wasn't asking any questions around, what are you guys doing? What are you doing with your time? Why are you billing 12 hours a day or however many hours a week? And we certainly weren't providing or going out of our way to provide those answers to the client or to provide that transparency. It was just kind of a foregone conclusion that we had a team of, I think it was 40 or 45 people on that first project I was on, and we were all going to bill 12, 14 hours a day and sometimes more. So those are the main things that I took away from my experience. In looking back, I should have been fired as an SAP consultant. So what does that mean to me today, and how has that helped us as an organization that I'm a part of? That's really why I started Third Stage Consulting, was to represent client interests and to take that bias out of the equation, because that bias is very damaging. It's very expensive. It's not effective. It doesn't provide value to organizations. And that's a real problem, I believe, in the industry. And that's part of why so many projects struggle and why so many projects fail ultimately. And so at the end of the day, we need to look at our consultants and understand, are they doing what's best for us? Do we have the transparency we need? Do we have the accountability we need? Are they providing value for the dollars we're spending? Those are all types of things we should be asking, as well as, are they giving us objective and unbiased recommendations all along the way throughout the entire digital transformation and ERP implementation? So those are some of the lessons that I've had from working at one of those big consulting firms as an SAP ERP consultant. However, I'd like to hear what you have to think. What comments do you have? Does any of this resonate with you? Have you had a similar experience either as a consultant, hiring a consultant, either in the SAP space or any sort of ERP vertical, or have you had a different experience? I'd love to hear your feedback. So please provide comments below. I'd love you to subscribe to my channel as well. You can also learn more about Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent, technology agnostic ERP consulting firm. You can learn more about us at thirdstage-consulting.com. Hope you find this helpful and hope to talk to you soon. Take care.